Okay, so this is my audience for my speech.
Is this just it?
Cool. Alright, so my name is Jose Jurado, and I'm going to be speaking about racial discrimination, specifically in the social justice system. So the specific purpose is to persuade my audience that racial inequality in the justice system is persuasive and urgent issue that demands immediate and comprehensive action. Imagine for a moment that you are walking down the street minding your own business when a police officer stops you, but instead of asking you for your ID or questioning about your behavior, they immediately assume you're a criminal simply because of the color of your skin. For millions of Black and Latino and Indigenous Americans, this isn't a hypothetical scenario. It is the painful reality that they face every day in a system that is supposed to serve and protect them. Through classes in ethics studies and a personal passion for social justice, I've studied how racial inequality is embedded into our justice system. My academic experience has given me a deeper understanding of how these disparities are rooted in historical, social, and systemic factors. Racial inequality is not a problem isolated to certain communities, it impacts everyone. Whether we realize it or not, racial injustice undermines the fundamental principles of fairness and equality that our society is built upon. It breeds division, perpetuates cycles of poverty and disenfranchisement, and erodes trust in the very institutions meant to protect us. If left unaddressed, it weakens the fabric of our democracy and prevents us from achieving true equality. Today I'll be discussing how racial inequality in the criminal justice system continues to be a significant issue sustained by systemic biases, historical oppression, and flawed policies. First, we will examine the scope of the problem, then we will dive into the root causes of these disparities. Finally, I will propose actionable solutions to address these inequalities and create a more just and equitable system. Let's begin by examining how racial inequality manifests in the criminal justice system and the devastating consequences it has on marginalized communities. So, racial inequality in the justice system. One of the most glaring examples of racial inequality is the disproportionate targeting of Black and Latino individuals by law enforcement. Research consistently shows that people of color are more likely to be stopped, searched, and arrested even when they have not committed a crime. For instance, Black Americans are nearly 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white Americans, despite the fact that both groups use marijuana at similar rates. This over-policing of communities of color feeds into a cycle of criminalization and mass incarceration. Another significant aspect of racial inequality in the justice system is sentencing disparities. Studies have shown that people of color often receive harsher sentencing for similar offenses compared to their white counterparts. This applies not only to the length of sentences, but also to the type of charges brought against individuals. Black and Latino individuals are more likely to be charged with more severe crimes, even when their actions mirror those of white individuals. These sentencing disparities not only strip people of their freedom, but they can also have lifelong consequences, including limiting access to education, employment, and housing. In many cases, these disparities can even result in the loss of life, particularly in cases involving police violence. Now that we've explored the scope of the problem, let's take a closer look at where these issues come from. What are the root causes of racial inequality and what are the root causes of racial inequality in the justice system? Roots of racial inequality. The foundation of criminal justice system are steeped in a history of racial oppression. From the institution of slavery to the era of segregation and the implementation of the Jim Crow laws, America's legal system has been a tool for maintaining racial hierarchies, even after the abolition of slavery and the civil rights movement. These historical practices have had a lasting impact. They have shaped laws and policies that disproportionately target people of color, creating a system that favors the status quo and continues to disadvantage marginalized communities. Systemic bias is another key factor that perpetuates racial inequality in the justice system. Bias, whether explicit or implicit, exists at every level, from law enforcement to the courts of corrections. Law enforcement officers are often trained to look for criminal behavior that is more frequently associated with people of color, leading to racial profiling. Juries too can be influenced by their own racial prejudices, either consciously or unconsciously, resulting in biased verdicts. Even judges, despite their trainings, may be influenced by racial stereotypes, leading to unfair and harsher sentencing for people of color. This bias is systemic. It is not just an individual problem, but a structural one that reinforces racial inequality at every stage of the justice process. Now that we understand the historical and systemic factors contributing to racial inequality, let's discuss how we can begin to address these deeply embedded problems. Racial equality. The first step towards reform is to change discriminatory policies. This includes the elimination of mandatory minimum sentencing laws, which disproportionately affects people of color by locking them into long prison terms for relatively minor offenses. Additionally, we need to revise outdated drug laws that criminalize the use of substances in a way that disproportionately affects Black and Latino communities. For example, laws that treat crack cocaine possession more harshly than powder cocaine possession have resulted in a staggering racial disparity in drug-related arrests and incarcerations. Furthermore, adopting restorative justice practices that prioritize rehabilitation over punishment can help reintegrate individuals into society and reduce recidivism rates, breaking the cycle of mass incarceration. Equally important is the investment in community programs aimed at addressing the root causes of crime. Poverty, lack of access to education, and systemic inequality are major contributors to involvement in the justice system. By funding programs that improve education, create job opportunities, and provide mental health and addiction services, we can reduce crime rates in marginalized communities and prevent the other policing of these areas. Additionally, supporting the re-entry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals can provide them with the resources they need to rebuild their lives and reintegrate into society, reducing the likelihood of recidivism and breaking the cycle of incarceration. In conclusion, it is clear that the issue of racial inequality in the criminal justice system is not only real, but also deeply embedded in the structures of society. To conclude, racial inequality in the criminal justice system continues to persist because of systemic biases, historical oppression, and outdated policies that disproportionately impact people of color. By understanding the problem, addressing its root causes, and implementing comprehensive reforms, that we can create a justice system that upholds the principles of fairness and equality for all. Thank you.